Welcome back to Benchmark. We have a very special guest in the hot seat on this, our first show for 2012. He's the former UN Under-Secretary General for Disarmament Affairs, who was also in the race for the UN's top job a few years ago, and more recently, a member of the Friday Forum here in Sri Lanka, Jayantha Dhanapala. Welcome to the very first program of Benchmark for 2012, Mr. Dhanapala, and a very happy new year to you.
The same to you, to your program, and to your viewers.
So where 2012 is concerned, are you looking forward to it where our precious nation's prospects are concerned?
Very much so, because it is now almost 3 years since we finished this terribly fratricidal and damaging war. And we have had the LLRC come out with its report. At this point of time, we still don't know what it contains, although I think it is really a betrayal of the people's hopes that it hasn't been published so far. But the implementation of the recommendations by the government in the coming year bode well, I think, and it means that we are turning the corner. Economically, of course, we are in a global situation which is extremely difficult. Europe is in recession, and Asia is also facing huge problems because the markets in the Western world are shrinking. Notwithstanding that, I think we have huge opportunities in a number of areas if we get our act together. And some of the missteps that took place in 2011 have to be rectified. And then I think we can look forward to a bright and prosperous future for all our people in Sri Lanka, the minorities and the majority in every sense of the world, both economically, politically, and ethnically.
So if we break this up into generations, meaning the youth and as adults perhaps, what in your view would young people be expecting in the medium term from our motherland?
I think they have great hopes now that the war is behind them, that we can fulfill the great promise that we always have had in terms of our natural resources and in terms of our human resources. They want to have the same opportunities and the same kind of lifestyle that they see through television and through other social media, the young people of other continents having. So I think that they themselves have rising expectations, not just economically for a comfortable life, but also politically for freedoms, the freedom that some countries have got to struggle to achieve, like the youth in Tahrir Square in Egypt, or the young people in a number of other Arab autocracies. Now we are in an advantage because we are in a democratic situation, and so they expect to see able to get these aspirations fulfilled.
What about brain drain, Mr. Dhanapala? We have not quite seen a reversal of that where young people are concerned. We still seem to be having brain drain. Why?
It is inevitable that water must flow in the direction in which the slope is. And since people see better opportunities, not just in the Western countries, not just in Australia, but in Middle East countries where wages are very good, particularly for unskilled and semi-skilled workers, but even for skilled workers. We are still not in that situation where we can afford to pay people those salaries. A lot of people, especially those in the unskilled and skilled sectors, are going to the Middle East in order to earn money and to bring it back. And this is a very important contribution to our economy. Those in the middle class and the upper classes who have got skills, some of them acquired here at the expense of public education system, are doing so. But again, I know that many of them go there to acquire permanent residency or for the education of their children and have the intention of coming back. Now this is a healthy thing. If that happens, I don't think we can grudge the fact that a professional goes out for 5 to 10 years to earn more money than he can in Sri Lanka and to give his children an international education, a broad education, than we can afford at the current moment.
So what do you think adult Sri Lankans are looking for in 2012 or in the medium term for our country? And also don't forget the aging population that we have, probably one of the most rapidly aging populations on earth at this point of time.
That is true. If I may take that aspect first, I think the aging population must have a fair and legitimate expectation of a good pension scheme, not something arbitrarily run by the government, from which the government can put its hands in the till from time to time to help to alleviate its own problems of the public exchequer. Secondly, the aging population have every right to demand of the government a good health system. And this is something that we have been fortunate to have in the past in Sri Lanka. Free health with very good doctors, but also facilities where our national hospital network must not only look at the curative aspects, but also the preventive aspects. And I think we have the potential to do this. We need to have aftercare in terms of the nursing care and the other medical assistance, not just the operating theatres and the facilities with regard to CAT scans and other highly sophisticated medical technology, but we need to have in every step of the way a good system of healthcare, including healthcare which goes to the villages themselves, a kind of barefoot doctor program which can ensure that our people get the health system that they deserve.
Time now for a commercial break. On the other side, we have more excerpts of our exclusive interview with Jayantha Dhanapala. Stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. We now continue with more insights from former UN Under Secretary General for Disarmament Affairs, Jayantha Dhanapala. So looking around Colombo, are you impressed with the beautification of Colombo as we see it? It's taking shape right in front of our very eyes. How much of this is actually necessary given the colossal cost of it that is actually happening? And also, are we getting our priorities right?
Frankly, I am impressed by what has been done by the Urban Development Authority. I'm not impressed by the way it has been done. I don't think this is a job that should be entrusted to the armed forces. I think it should be entrusted to the municipal authorities who have got employees precisely for that task. The armed forces are there for a particular reason in any country, and the extension of their remit to undertake urban development, I think, is a step too far, and also a dangerous step, because it could lead to the armed forces being delegated other tasks which is none of their business. And this, I think, creates fear and suspicion in the minds of the people, because this ubiquitous presence of the army doesn't bode good, particularly for a country which has democratic institutions still, and which would like to see these democratic institutions flourish. The army has done a magnificent job in winning the war for us and in ridding the country of terrorism. It must now go back to barracks and remain there. This is what other armies have done after they have served their countries in wars as well as in internal conflicts. And this is what our army should do. I respect them, but they have a place in a democratic setup. You might say that there are other priorities, but if we are talking about the development of tourism, we have to make sure that our cities are attractive and beautiful, and an invitation to foreigners to come and spend their time not only on our beaches and in our hill country areas, but also in our cities where most of the hotels are located. I would very much hope that Jaffna, Kandy, my own hometown, Galle and other cities are also beautified as they should be. But also it's important that they should conserve the traditional buildings. And I see that being done. For example, the old Ceylon Turf Club building is being restored and renovated, and that's a good thing, because that shows a sense of tradition, architectural tradition. And we have a rich architectural tradition which is a combination of the old style buildings that we had, the colonial style buildings and the more modern buildings. So we need to maintain that cultural mix
So you mentioned not only Colombo but the rest of the country too should be seeing this upgrade. From what we are seeing now, isn't it rather lopsided?
Well, it is lopsided, first of all, when they resettle some of the slum dwellers with no regard at all about their rights. Some of these people have lived in those areas for a very long time. Now, converting the slums, of course, into good public housing, decent public housing, allowing those children to continue to go to the schools they were going to in the past, and allowing them that facility of being very close to markets and other places of public importance that they used to be able to have access to, is extremely important. We can't get rid of our slum dwellers in order to beautify Sri Lanka. That is a socially unacceptable way of proceeding about it, apart from it being undemocratic and unfair.
But now we have to borrow substantially to fund things like this. Is there any quality in all this? Can we balance it all off?
Well, this is my major concern about the economic management of the country. The credit crisis is something that we will have to face sooner or later. We have seen in more developed countries like the United States, where Wall Street greed has been insatiable and has led to the collapse of banks and investment banking and so on. We have seen what is happening in Europe, where there is a credit crunch and where the governments of Greece and Italy have had to fall. Technocrats are taking over the management of their economies now. The Eurozone is in big trouble. We have to learn from these lessons, and we must know that the continuing escalation of our debt is not the way to go. I am not convinced that the latest budget is being able to address that. In fact, although it's called a development budget, we can't borrow continuously with the high interest rates that we are paying in the commercial markets. The bill that was adopted in haste last year to take over some 30 odd so-called underperforming and underutilized assets, to me, is a step in the wrong direction. The government would be better advised to look into their own house and put it in order to ensure that government undertakings like Mihin Air and Sri Lankan Airlines and other government enterprises, including the Ceylon Electricity Board, are run more efficiently and profitably before looking at the mote in other people's eyes and then taking over those, obviously for politically vindictive motives. This gives a very bad signal to the private sector abroad, and they are going to be less anxious to come in here unless there are cast iron guarantees.
We take another break now. Stay tuned for more views from former senior diplomat Jayantha Dhanapal.